Shalom, shalom. All praises due to the Most High Elohim, the Elohim of our forefathers Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. My name is Yael Ezra Living, aka Tom, Tommy Kurt Todd, and I want to make this other video because I want to refute once again what I've been hearing from these videos by Pastor Dollar, the pastor of World Changers here in Atlanta, Georgia, where I now reside. In this video I was watching, it was talking about the purpose of the law, the Torah, and grace and truth, how you cannot mix the law with grace. He said if you do that, you are destined to fail because the Creator doesn't like mixture, so he don't want grace and law coming together. And he started with the Gospel of John, chapter 1, verse 17. And it read as such: For the law was given by Moses, but grace and truth came by Jesus Christ. And of course he shut the book up right there. Then he just went into over a 90-minute lesson. And a lot of what he said, of course, it contradicted the Torah. And then he said a lot that contradicted the one who he believes to be the Messiah, the one who he believes to be God in the flesh, with his message. And it was preached to at least close to 10,000 people, cheering and applauding and pointing and encouraging and waving their handkerchiefs at him, telling him to preach, not knowing what he was declaring was a lie. And I will show you that it is a lie coming from the very Bible that he holds up and says that he follows. He believes in the whole book. Many people, many Christians, I didn't say all, I said many Christians say they believe the whole book, from Genesis to Revelation. But as soon as you share something from the Genesis side or the Old Testament side that contradicts something that they believe in the New, they don't want nothing to do with that side anymore. So they need just to be honest with themselves and with others and say that they're a New Testament baby. They're a New Testament child of God. They are a follower of the new covenant. Leave the Holy Scriptures out of it. But of course, when it's talking about tithes, you run to the Old Testament. You run to the Tanakh. Because you love going to Malachi. You love going to talk about planting seeds and seed time and harvest, and you make it talk about money. But seed time and harvest in the book of Genesis is plainly talking about putting seeds in the earth, and it will reproduce what kind of seed that it is. It's not talking about money. So they love to use the Old Testament if it will be beneficial to them. Let me get back to his lesson, what he was saying, because this is something I want to ask. The God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, what he gave Moses, I am asking you, what he gave Moses, was it a lie? And was it full of it was didn't have no grace to it? Because whoever wrote John, it says in verse John chapter 1 verse 17, I will read it again. For the law, for the Torah, the instructions and teachings of Yah, because that's what the word Torah is, it said it was given by Moses, but grace and truth came by Jesus Christ. So what it is saying is, what was given to Moses didn't have no grace and no truth was present. Truth and grace came by way of Jesus. So you're actually saying what Yah himself gave Moses was void of truth and it was void of grace. Now, I said I'm going to show to you that that is a falsehood. And I'm going to use the word of God to prove it. When I say the word of God, I am talking about that half of the Bible that most people don't even pay attention to read because they believe that it's done away with and they don't have to follow it. But for some reason, it resurrects itself again when it's time for tithes and offering. We talk about sowing seeds because they make that actual seed somehow become money. And then they go back to it when it's beneficial to them. But when they talk about actually living from the morals and the righteousness and holiness of it, oh, we ain't under that law. Well, we under grace. We don't have to keep none of that law because that law will bring a curse to you. But yes, look at what it says. First, I want you to follow me to the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 6. We're going to start at verse 24 and 25. Deuteronomy chapter 6, verses 24 and 25. And then after I read it, just ask yourself, do this line up with what I read to you from out of the New Testament, from out of the Gospel of John? Book of Deuteronomy chapter 6, verse 24 and 25. Hallelujah. And I am coming from the King James Version of the Bible. And the Lord commanded us to do all these statutes, to fear the Lord our God, for our good always, that he might preserve us alive as it is at this day. And it shall be our righteousness if we observe to do all these commandments before the Lord our God as he has commanded us. Now allow me to read it to you again, and I will insert the name of the Creator. As I told you before, when you see Lord in all caps, that is talking about the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and he has a name. And Yahweh commanded us to do all these statutes, to fear Yahweh our Elohim, for our good always, that he might preserve us alive as it is at this day. And it shall be our righteousness if we observe to do all these commandments before Yahweh our Elohim as he has commanded us. I just wanted to read that. Now let's go follow me to Psalms 119. Psalms 119. Better start at verse 1. Blessed are the undefiled in the way, who walks in the law of the Lord. Now allow me to read it again. Blessed are the undefiled in the way, who walk in the Torah of Yahweh. We see blessed are those that walk in the way. It is the proper way to walk before the face of Yah. But for some reason, whoever wrote John said that the truth only came with Jesus. Grace only came with Jesus. What Moses was given, the Torah that was given to Moses to give to our ancestors, what Yah gave Moses was void of grace and truth. Moses gave the people things that wasn't even true. It had no grace to it, according to the writer of John. But let us keep reading. Let's go to stay in Psalms 119 and just look at verse 142. Thy righteousness is an everlasting righteousness, and thy law is the truth. Again, allow me to read it again. Thy righteousness is an everlasting righteousness, and thy Torah is the truth. So we see, according to King David, that he considered the Torah to be truth. our righteousness, according to King David, came through observing the truth, which was the law of Yah. So some reason, according to whoever wrote John, the law that was given to Moses is void of truth and grace. So we see from the Tanakh, the Old Testament, that is refuted. And it's really many other verses other than what I'm sharing, that where the law is truth. It is righteousness. It is holy and good. And even in sometimes in the New Testament writings, your favorite messenger, the Apostle Paul, tells you the law is holy, righteous, and good. Yet for some reason, y'all don't need to keep any of that. Just live by grace. Just live according to the truth. Keep going. Let's go to Proverbs now. Let's look in Proverbs. Proverbs chapter 6, verse 23. Proverbs chapter 6, verse 23. For the commandment is a lamp, and the law is light, and the reproofs of instructions are the way of life. So this person evidently did not see the law of Moses, does not see the Torah as something that is a burdensome. He sees it as light and instructions that is a way of life. It gives life if you apply the Torah. Let's stay in Proverbs and let's look at Proverbs chapter 13. Looking at verse 13 and 14. We're going to start at verse 13. Proverbs chapter 13, verse 13. Whosoever despiseth the word shall be destroyed, but he that feareth the commandment shall be rewarded. The law of the wise is a fountain of life, to depart from the snare of death. Good understanding giveth favor, but the way of a transgressor is hard. But let me go back to verse 14. The law of the wise is a fountain of life, to depart from the snares of death. So we see, based off just of the few witnesses that I gave, that I shared with you, to refute what was said by the key foundational verse that Pastor Dollar was using. He said that the law is bondage. This is what, Pastor Dollar says. That it's a bondage. And you will not prosper if you try to keep it. He said it is a mixture that the Most High hates. The Most High do not want you to mix Torah with grace. These are the words of Pastor Dollar in this lesson I just observed. He said, truth only came to be in the earth because of Jesus. Grace and truth came by the way of Jesus. So he is literally telling you. He is telling my fellow Israelites. He's telling my fellow Hebrews, the Tanakh only people, the Torah people, that Moses didn't give us truth. And with that truth, there was no grace that was extended to us by the Almighty Yah. Our ancient forefathers was a group of people that had no truth, and God was not gracious unto them, because that was reserved for Jesus. Jesus is the one that brought truth and grace, according to the writer of John, according to a lot of people that follow the dogma of Christianity. So if you are a man and woman of God, and as I said before, I'm not a novice to Christianity and what some groups or sects teach within it. But explain to me how Yah, who is the author of truth, who is truth, who is absolute truth, and that which he gives to his people is absolute truth. But for some reason, all the righteous instructions that he gave to Moshe, to Moses, to give to our forefathers, to our ancestors, was not truthful, was not truth in itself, and they knew nothing of grace. Explain that to me. Even when Yah himself, when Moses makes the request that he wants to see God's face, he wants to see God for himself. And he says when he reveals himself, he declares his name twice, and he lets you know that he was full of grace. He's a gracious Elohim. So this gracious God that's of truth, and that he showed favor and grace towards his people when he brought them out of bondage in the land of Egypt. But now for some reason, we go into the New Testament, and they want to make you think that the people in the Tanakh, the people within the Torah, did not have no truth, did not know anything about the concept of God's grace, period, because of this statement in the Gospel of John. And like I said, I just finished listening to this message. Pastor Dollar is a word of faith preacher, and a lot of people within Christianity, preachers, teach this. And as I said before in a previous video, I don't lump all Christians in the same box, because I know of a lot of Christians that don't believe the core tenets of Christianity. But when I finished watching this video, I was just like, wow, I got to say something against this. I got to make a video speaking against this, because it is amazing how God, the creator of the heaven and earth, gave righteous instructions to his people. But for some reason, it wasn't truth. And his people knew nothing about grace, because that only came by way of Jesus Christ, according to whoever wrote the Gospel of John. They say it was John that wrote it. If he wrote it, I highly disagree now with what John is saying. And for many years of my life, I'm 50 now, but for 20-something years of my life, I sweat and I bled this. I believed it with all my heart that this was the way to go. But then upon saying I'm going to take a different approach, because I see a lot of things that just don't line up. How can I say this is all one book and it doesn't contradict itself? And then when I look into it and look into it by context, and I take verses out of context and kidnap verses away from its contextual meaning, I saw a lot of fallacy. And I challenged myself to see if I could prove what I was believing as a Christian. Can it be supported solely by the Tanakh itself, by the Old Testament? Mainly the Torah, the first 5 books of the Bible. Because I was told as a Christian when I was in minister's school, minister classes, that the New Testament is the fulfillment of what is written in the Old. And they say, remember, Paul didn't have a New Testament. He used the Old Testament to show people what he was saying was true. So if that's what he did, surely I can do the same thing too. And I found out I could not support anything that I believed using the Tanakh. On the core beliefs within Christianity, that Jesus is God, that Jesus was the Messiah, that Jesus came to do away with the law. Jesus gave us a new law because he replaced the old law. Jesus kept the law because we couldn't keep the law. It's so many things that's taught within Christianity that the New Testament don't even agree with. and the Tanakh, the Holy Scriptures, don't even agree with. And that became alarming to me. So I had to do that which was, sane, and reevaluate what I believe to be true and see if I could find it within the Tanakh itself. And I couldn't. If I just read in context, if I just looked at what was being said and I isolate a verse and interpret it with Christian lens. Because when Yah is plainly saying he's talking about what type of clean animals to give, and the animals can't be without spot or blemish, how is that talking about the Messiah? How is that talking about a man when he plainly says an animal? So we can't use types and shadows. We can't take verses out of context and twist it and manipulate it to make it support what we want it to support. Yah is clear in his instructions. He is clear in what he says. The Torah is the way, the truth, and it is life. And you will find within the book of Psalms the Torah described in that manner as being life, as being truth, and being the way. And we also know that the Torah is righteousness for us. And when we live according to it, we are making manifest the righteousness of Yah as he gave to our teacher Moshe. So that is all I wanted to share. I want you to read, for some of you that have a Bible that contains the New Testament, look at the Gospel of John, chapter 1. And I believe, let me go back to it again because I want to read it again. I want to make sure I'm giving the right information out. John chapter 1. John chapter 1. And it is verse 17. For the law was given by Moses, but grace and truth came by Jesus Christ. So once again, whoever wrote John believes that the Torah that was given to Moses to give to our ancestors did not contain truth or grace. Our people was void of truth and grace, according to the Gospel of John, chapter 1, verse 17. Now, I know many people that are Christians or Messianics, they will refute what I'm saying and disagree with it. As I say before in all my videos, I do not care. You have the right to disagree with me, just as I have the right to disagree with your viewpoints on things. It's all fine for me. I'm sharing what I believe to be true, just as you yourself, who may refute what I am saying, you are sharing what you believe to be true, and you stand on it with all your heart. We who are Israelites, who are Tanakh only, who are Torah based, we feel the same way just as strongly. So, this is your brother, Yael, aka Tommy Kurt Todd. Shalom, love, and blessings.